a lot of times authors wonder how much work it's going to be to write a book. And most people already have a content library that they can pull from. And that's what we did for the first book. So I took everything that I'd written in different places and copied and pasted it all into one document. And when I saw how long that content was, it was basically like half the length of the book, and it's easier to repurpose content and adjust the transitions than to just start from scratch. And so that definitely made the process easier, and it made me realize like, oh, I can actually do this.
You are now listening to the highlight reel builder for authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author and Maxwell Leadership Certified Trainer, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be getting some tips and techniques to advance yourself coming up next. Today's episode is sponsored by both books, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, and the follow-up bestseller, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Head over to Amazon.com, pick up both books. They are available in a trifecta of paperback, audio, and ebook. Cop all three of both and be on the lookout for another book from yours truly to help podcasters succeed. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North podcast, aka GMP, the great, glorious, and glamorous, we got another super special, awesome human that can fit all three of those G's indeed. And might as well add gorgeous too. Thanks to podmatch.com, the wonderful website where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if they're cool, they're in. As today's guest is cooler than two cucumbers because we got a ghost in the building, baby. That's right. Indeed. That's right, indeed. Don't turn to your backseat of your car if you're listening to your car. Don't do it. Don't do it. She's not in your car. Not that kind of ghost. Talk about a ghostwriter, y'all. That's right, indeed. A New York Times bestselling ghostwriter, indeed, who is a mom, wife, editor, and a content strategist. So let's give it up for Miss AM and FM herself, the amazing and fabulous Amelia Forczak. How you doing today, Amelia?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, doing good in the neighborhood.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. It's great to have you indeed. That's right indeed. I believe you're probably the 5th or 6th ghostwriter on the podcast so far. I guess I've had at least one a year, so I've met my quota.
That's fun. I love talking with other ghostwriters.
Ooh. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Yep, especially when it involves ghost corn. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Don't go in that maze. It's corny. But hey, it ain't about corn maze. It's about the amazing Amelia. So my goodness, as with all introductions, are not allowed to be 83.7 days long, and I probably only covered 0.3 of what you actually do to help out folks in your journey. So mine, filling in folks on how you got to where you are today. Is it your first time on the podcast?
Yeah, my first time. I'm excited to be here. I've had my business for about 13 years, and I help people write, market, and publish their books. So I have ghostwritten, I think, 13 books over the years, and I've helped with a ton of others in a variety of capacities, whether it's book coaching or editing or doing some kind of just any kind of support that the author needs. I do a lot of outlining for books, and it's been really great. I definitely enjoy my work.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about. Wait, if I heard you correctly, 13 years of business, huh?
Yeah. I started it on the side while I was working in the marketing department of an HR consulting firm. And I ended up ghostwriting a couple of books for my CEO. He got approached by a literary agent and basically got a book deal, but he was like, who's going to write these books? I don't have time to do it. So I volunteered to do it because I had always wanted to write books. I have a journalism degree. Like, my mom was a librarian. I've always loved books. And so I wrote his first book, which ended up becoming a New York Times bestseller. And then I wrote a second book for him and just launched my business on the side. And since then it's grown, and I've got 35 team members at this point. So it's been a great journey.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. She took that action. That's right, indeed. Action, Amelia. You love to see it. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. CEO's like, dang gummit, I ain't got no time. Who next gonna write these? Amelia's like, I'm here hustling, baby. I'm in. I'm like, yeah, I can do it for you. I can write stuff. That's right, indeed. All the puns intended, indeed. So my goodness, so what led to that confidence of you actually stepping up like that? Because that ain't the ordinary thing you volunteer for from the boss.
Right, right. Like writing your first book, it was scary, but I knew that I'd always wanted to write a book, and figuring out how to make that work. I wasn't sure if I could do it. And at this point, it was like, if I can do this as part of my full-time job, that just seemed like such a great fit. And I'd already written a lot of content for that company, like blog posts, white papers, case studies. I'd done all kinds of stuff. And this is actually a good question, because a lot of times authors wonder how much work it's going to be to write a book. And most people already have a content library that they can pull from. And that's what we did for the first book. So I took everything that I'd written in different places and copied and pasted it all into one document. And when I saw how long that content was, it was basically like half the length of the book, which was super encouraging. Like, it still needed to have transitions, and not everything fit into the scope of the book, but a lot of it did, and it's easier to repurpose content and adjust the transitions than to just start from scratch. And so that definitely made the process easier, and it made me realize, like, oh, I can actually do this.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. And it says something so powerful, kind of snuck in there. Like you already had a content library to pull from. It's like, dude, that is so freaking amazing. And that's probably the beautiful thing for folks who already have a writing habit of writing at least 500 words a day. Like, no matter how good or crap they are, at least getting that content out there. So it's like, oh, it comes time for your book. You can just go to your content library, pull it out, and be like, man, what was I smoking when I wrote this thing? Let's polish it up, clean it up, make it look extra shiny, and put it out for the world to see and devour. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. That is how you want to do it, because you want to get the most mileage out of your content as you can. And so you can even do this with videos that you've recorded, or it's easy to get things, just run it through transcription, and that gives you even more content. But it's encouraging for authors to hear that, because you don't have to start from scratch, and you can also feed your marketing while you're writing your book. Like, as you're posting blogs, you become known for being a thought leader on whatever that topic is. And then later that can also be in your book. So definitely, like, killing two birds with one stone.
Heck yeah, that's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Especially when that bird has a blunt in its mouth, it'll be double stoned. That's right, indeed.
I would say that was like a dad joke, but given the content, it probably wasn't.
Oh, today's kids, it's a dad joke. Not your kid, obviously, but oh man, indeed. So my goodness, so having that wonderful content library, having the confidence to be like, hey, extra credit with the bow. Show this is a side business. Sweet. Who needs a side dish when you have a side business and it becomes a full time business? So how was that jump like? Because my goodness, how was that process like? Because there's some folks listening right now that may be like, man, my job freaking sucks a lot, like a lollipop, and not a good one. It's like a spiked lollipop. So, like, how was that process and that transition piece of going working at that marketing company to finally going out on your own?
Yeah. So I built the business up on the side, and it was extra work, obviously, because I was working the full-time job, and then I was doing other projects for clients, at night and on the weekends. And it started to grow so much that I got really busy, and I couldn't really grow the business anymore while having that full-time job. And at that point, I didn't really want the full-time job anymore. Like my CEO had actually sold the company after he had that success with his books. And a private equity firm bought it, and it was just a totally different environment than it had been. And so I didn't really feel like I was risking anything to leave that job because I didn't really want to keep working there anyway. So I figured I'll try starting my own business full time and see how that works. And if it doesn't work, then that's fine. I'll ultimately, find another job doing something else. And so I just went about it that way, and it didn't really feel like a risk. It's funny because people always talk about that, like entrepreneurship is such a risk, putting yourself out there, but transitioning that doesn't make you happy and you don't want to keep doing it, it's not really so much of a risk to to stop doing that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's like, hey, if it's something you don't like doing and you built up something to the point where it's like, all right, this thing can actually sustain itself and actually help me be in my element, my growth. So it's like, all right, time to make the freaking jump here indeed and invite others to play with you because you got 39 employees, right?
Yeah, they're contractors, so it's a little bit different, but yeah, they're busy. And I mean that model has helped me a lot because the amount of work fluctuates, and just given the type of work that we do, a lot of different skill sets are needed, because we do publishing, writing, and marketing. So we've got people who are graphic designers, website developers, proofreaders, ghostwriters, people who specialize in copy editing, people who specialize in developmental editing, which is different. So all these different skill sets, and having people as freelancers come in and out has been great. And we have a lot of people on the team who've been with us for years.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. And what led to the name? Because I believe it's called Pithy Wordsmithery. So was it like Nike where you just had the Greek statue in your mind appear like 3 a.m. in the morning? Like what led to that name?
Yeah, it did just kind of come to me. I wanted something sort of fun and like a play on words. And I kind of just like the ERY at the end of words that don't usually have that. And so I thought it was fun, and it's kind of a mouthful, but I get a lot of compliments on it with people who just think it's like clever. So it's been a good name, and I feel like it fits us too because we try to have fun and not take ourselves too seriously. We still produce quality work, but we don't want to be totally corporate buttoned up either.
That's what I'm talking about indeed, especially when a lot of folks are on edge these days and probably need some laughter. They probably haven't laughed in like days. They haven't smiled in days, and they need to realize, hey, I can feel a little lighter. So my goodness. So speaking of fun, how's your process like with your clients with ghostwriting? Because I imagine it could take a lot of time because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of your clients are, if not all your clients are usually nonfiction business books, right?
Yeah, we help people with nonfiction books mostly. So business books, personal development books, things that help them with their business. And so the book is like a marketing piece for their personal brand. We also do some kids books and memoirs. And so we do some stuff outside of that. But for the most part, our process for ghostwriting is like maybe 5 months. Usually I would start with the outline. So when people come to us, sometimes they know that they want to write a book, but they don't really know where to start or what the book would be about. And other times people say, well, I've started writing, I have an outline. And it's always like a bit of a wild card from there to see like how much work the book needs. And I've spent more time untangling books than if I would have just ghostwritten the whole thing from scratch. And it's because for the projects like that, the author didn't start with a really good outline that would set them up for success. So when we're working with new clients, we always start with the outline first and the strategy. So we talk about, why are we writing this book? How is it going to fit into your life? What does success look like for the project? how will this book fit into revenue streams and support you in 5 years or 10 years? And so we get really specific on the strategy. And then I lead them through doing a brain dump of all the things that could potentially be in the book, create the table of contents from there. And so the outlining process usually takes, maybe like a month and a half or something. And I also write the back jacket text, which is like the North Star for the book. And so once we have that, we can start on the actual ghostwriting. And it depends on how long the book is, like how long that writing process is. Some books are 25,000 words. Some books are, 100,000 words. So the length is a big factor. But I would say generally like 5 months or 6 months is usually pretty comfortable for ghostwriting. And then it goes into production after that, which takes another 4 months or so. So you're probably looking at start to finish about a year from the time you start working on the book to the launch.
That's right indeed. I hear you. That's right indeed. Because you got to get in the mind of the person you're writing the book for, especially since it's that good old tactile stuff, that real world experience, that memoir of stories. It's like, oh man, which story should they add or take out? And heck, even you have to write about the outline because that makes life a heck of a lot easier because you basically have a compass of where you want to go and where you need to go. So how long does it take usually to help your clients develop those outlines usually, and what's the process like for developing them?
Yeah, that outline, I call that the phase 1 process. And so I would normally do weekly calls over, about 10 weeks. And we meet for an hour once a week. And by the end of that, I would have an outline put together. And it's funny because I started doing that service and I do a ton of those every year. And I think that it's been really helpful for clients because the outline is kind of the hardest part. It's like where you do all the deep thinking and strategy for what you're actually talking about. And then once you have the outline, it's really easy to sit down and kind of just treat it like a blog post where if you're comfortable sitting down writing 500 words on a topic, you can easily do that once you have the outline because you've got all the bullet points for each chapter. We've already done like the math for the word count goal. So if we say, okay, this book's going to be 40,000 words, we know how many chapters we have. We know how many bullet points per chapter. So you have a target word count for each bullet point. And so once you have that really solid outline, it does make it a lot easier to write the book yourself if that's what you want to do.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right indeed. That's right. That's the power of having a wise mind on your side, helping you to take those thoughts, put them to paper, have an outline, get that skeleton for your book. That's right, indeed. Get the whole vertebrae going, get the bones ready. That's right. That way the meat can go on them later. That's right, indeed. And then you'll have a whole metaphorical body of work ready to go out into the world. That's right, indeed. It'll be drop kicking folks. That's right, indeed. Metaphorically.
Yeah. That's true though, like that you want to start with the bones. Like that's how you would approach any project, right? And I think a lot of aspiring authors don't start with that. Like it feels good for them to just sit down and write. It's therapeutic and they're like, "Oh, I'm working on my book. Let me just write this like one story that I know is going to go in there." And when you do it that way, it's funny how a lot of that stuff that you write, you end up realizing is off target from what you actually need. And so it feels good and it feels like you're making progress. But unless you know exactly where that content's going to go and you have like a clear lane for it, where you're not like writing about things that actually fit in different chapters that you're going to need to untangle later, it can be more of like an exercise that feels good than something that's actually productive.
Oh yeah, definitely indeed. That's right indeed. Because you definitely want to be productive indeed. And funny enough, you mentioned something earlier that's very important that I don't think was ever been covered on this podcast, which is kind of sad but funny, is the book jacket text, because most folks don't even think about that. So like when it comes to book jacket text, like what are some things that folks need to keep in mind when if they're gonna do it themselves or even better yet getting a professional like yourself to do it?
Yeah, the back jacket text is super important. also called just like the about the book text, because you can use it everywhere. So I think it's good to get that done early, because it does give you perspective on what you want the book to be. The back jacket text covers, like what readers are going to get out of the book, why you're the best person to tell that story, why the book is needed right now, what they can expect out of it, like some selling points, how the book is different. And it seems easy to write that because it's just a couple of paragraphs, but it is the elevator pitch for your book, and the elevator pitches are always hard, So putting in the work early to get that stuff done helps you, because if you're like deep in a chapter where you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with this? You can look at the back jacket and be like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing with the book. Is this chapter doing that, or did I rabbit hole a little bit? And so it keeps you on track. It's also really helpful because you're able to send it out to people. When you say, oh, I'm writing a book, you can send them that back jacket text, and it makes it a lot easier if you're like, oh, I really would love to do an interview, or I want to ask you about something, maybe quote you in the book. Here's what the book's about. And you just send it to them. And it makes it so much more organized and easy.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. It's like you're giving the book a pair of wonderful heels and having it go the runway. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Walk that runway, indeed. And funny enough, I believe that's actually part of your background too. And heck, even still today, where it's like, hey, you wake up fabulous, and it's like, hey, let me go ahead and model. So, my goodness, how's your modeling experience helped you with your current business as well?
Oh yeah. So I started modeling in high school, and I was mostly doing like smaller stuff, because I was living in Michigan, and then I moved to Chicago and did more modeling here, like runway, commercials and print work. And so like catalog stuff, I did fashion week. I've done like trunk shows at all the department stores and all that stuff. So did that for like a really long time. And then I had my daughter like about 5 years ago, and I started just figured, I'm like, oh, I'll be done with this at this point or whatever. But then I just started booking more stuff where like part of the persona was like, oh, maybe she's a mom, and it's like I felt like I didn't really look different at that point, but it was like, it was like at Starbucks, like, oh yeah, she's mom. It's like, I'm just drinking coffee, like, but I know it's silly. It's been good. I think that it's been a great balance with modeling and writing, because writing can be really reclusive work where I'm home by myself doing deep thinking. And then doing modeling is like, it's hard in a different way, And it's like always being around people, new people that I haven't met, going new places I haven't been, and I never really know what's going to be expected of me until I get there. Like I don't know what the shoot's going to be about. And sometimes when you get there, they're like, "Oh, you're going to be like strapped into a harness so that you're like hanging. So you can be like a fairy. Like, it's like just random bizarre stuff that is like I mean, it can be exhausting in a different way, right? Like by the end of like a full day shoot, when I'm like around, I have to be on, and I'm like around people all day, it's like sitting home and writing the next day by myself feels so good. And so I think that it's been a really nice balance.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Who knows? Maybe you had the mom glow after the baby that you didn't know about. It's like, oh, she glows different. We must have her on our advertisement.
I think I did, because I was showing up to castings, and they always ask a random question like, what are you doing this weekend? Or blah, blah, just beaming all the time. Like, I'm going to hang out with my baby. She's the coolest.
Ah, that's what it is. It's like, yay, baby. It's a mini me. That's right,
Yeah.
indeed. That's right, indeed. The natural cloning, but not cloning. You love to see it. So, my goodness, since you've been on a few interviews promoting the work that you're doing, help folks go out into the open and be published authors, like even New York Times freaking best-selling authors. My goodness, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're doing interviews like this?
That's a good question. I think people who are listening to podcasts always wonder about the process. So 81% of people want to write a book someday. And most people don't end up doing that because they don't think it's possible. But it's totally possible if you just keep going, that's all it is. I think that writing a book is an endurance sport. And a lot of times people get overwhelmed by the whole thing where they're like, I can't write 60,000 words, But it's kind of like if you were going to go on, if you were going to do an Ironman or something, you wouldn't just do the whole thing without practicing first, right? You have to get your muscles built up and do little by little by little and chip away at it and get better. And writing's like that too, you don't have to write the whole book today. You write a little bit and then you write a little more tomorrow, and pretty soon you're covering this huge distance, and you can sit down and write for a lot longer than you could have before. And so I do think it's kind of like a sport where if you stick with it, you get better at it and you just keep going, and pretty soon you've written a ton of content.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Indeed, all that content. Indeed, it's actually true when you put it that way. Because never even thought about it. Because it's so freaking true. Funny enough, I had a ghostwriter. She writes sci-fi for clients of hers, and it's like 10,000 words a day is usually her usual default. Heck, even one day she broke a
10,000
first.
words a day. That's a
Yeah,
ton. That she's
yeah.
that's epic.
Oh yeah, folks should check that episode out. The title of that episode is Peak Performance Ghostwriting, because since it's sci-fi and she basically has to create it, she actually has a standing desk and usually works out and everything like that to keep herself fit. And she's a mom herself, and that's her main job at home. And she even has a husband that's a stay-at-home dad. So basically she's doing basically most of the work. And when she said that, I'm like, what the freaking heck? 10,000 words, just like
That's
both of my books. Like, what the hell? 10,000.
10,000
What?
words is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Like
personal best would.
if I write 2,000 words, yeah, 2,000 words in a day for me is good, like that's a decent, I could knock out a book if I do 2,000 words. If I do 1,000 words a day, it's still a pretty good pace, to be honest.
Oh, heck yeah. Because some folks don't even write one.
Yeah. I mean, when you think if your book is 40,000 words and you can sit down and write 1,000 words a day, it's not gonna take you very long to finish that book.
Heck yeah. That's right. You'll be like Sonic the Hedgehog.
So you've written a couple books. Tell me about, I want to hear about that.
Oh yeah, sure. So first one's called Going North: Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself. That book was written on a dare back when I was 23 at the time. A nice little synthesized self-help package for the distracted minds. It's under 100 pages. And then there's a follow-up book called Stay the Course: The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Try saying that title 7 times fast. If you win, you might win a free book just for doing it successfully. And that book is also another short book, really, that's a field guide to help you to not only reach your next level, but actually sustain that level. And if not, go to the next level after that. Because when it comes to success, it's like, hey, you got to really go for the next thing, because what gets you here won't actually get you there all the time. You have to actually tap into a new level of your inner greatness. And those books were definitely just wonderful books featuring stories and things I truly believe in myself and actually putting out there into the world. It's kind of actually how the podcast started as a way to market my own books, but it eventually made it about helping out other authors to get their voices out there to spread the love, the writing love across the globe.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. A lot more people are doing podcasts now. And for authors, I mean, I think half the work is marketing. And that's another reason why we focus on marketing for our authors too, because we want to see them succeed. And it would be great if you could just write a book and have it be a good book and people would automatically find it. But authors really need to put in so much work for marketing. And a lot of times people aren't prepared for that. And it comes as like an unwelcome surprise. So I don't know if you felt that way, but you're like, wait, I already wrote this book and now I should be done with all the work, right? But no, there's more.
No, you're right. Because I should have learned the lesson from my first book, but I was just probably so tired that day when I was talking to my buddy about it. And she called me out my BS. Like, hey, so you got this plan to become bestseller. Like, what have you done with it? It's like, I don't know. I've recruited 2 people to be on the street team. Um, that's like progress, right? It's like, no, you have to actually do it. Cause I was like so pissed because that book originally it was about a good year and a half after the original target date for it to launch. And everything happens for a reason. It probably never got on the Amazon bestseller list if it released a year earlier. So yeah, there's a reason for everything. And marketing is like, oh God, I finally got this darn thing done. Now I have to freaking market it. No. No, put me out the pasture instead. No.
Yeah, we love making marketing easier for authors because it can be so painful. So marketing is a skill, right? Like a lot of times people don't have a background in that, so they don't really know like what the best practices are, how to go about doing it. And then sometimes people are like it's too personal. It's like you're too close to it where it's hard to see like exactly what you should do for marketing. It's kind of like easier to get that outside opinion and have somebody help you, like just have that other perspective. Because a lot of times I think people are humble, and it feels weird for them to be like tooting their own horn and like posting to social all the time. They feel like it's just like, look at me, look at me. And it's really important to figure out how to make your marketing messages be about the topic and the reader and helping people rather than making it about you. And if you can do that, it makes the process a lot, easier. It makes it not painful. It doesn't feel cringy because you're putting out content that you think is going to help people rather than just like posting lots of photos of yourself.
Oh, heck yeah. That's right, indeed. That's the good thing about book marketing. It's not like 10 years ago when Instagram was more about photos where folks would take pictures of their food and their dinners and share it like, oh yeah, check out my food. It's fancy. I'm eating. Like, no, it's actually something more creative, something that actually help people.
Yeah, and that makes it more interesting too. It's like you think about what could I help people with? Like what questions might they have and creating content around that. And then you're building up an audience that likes that kind of content, which means they're going to like your book because that's what the book is about too.
Heck yeah. That's right, indeed. That's where that creativity comes in. That's right. You get to see yourself as a giant Hello Kitty, and you get to hop into the metaphorical arms of your wonderful readers, and they get to read you. That's right, indeed. That's right. So, my goodness. So, with all this wonderful ghosting for folks, do you ever see yourself becoming metaphorically fully human and writing a book of your own?
That is a great question. So I did write like half a book at some point, and then I was like, I'm going to turn this into an online course instead. And so I did that. And so I have an online course that teaches people how to outline and write their own book. And so I think that's been helpful. But yeah, I should pull that content back out and turn it into a book. It's it's just funny because I'm so busy writing books for other people that my own project always gets pushed to the back burner. And I think there are other people who have something like this in mind that they want to work on. But yeah, I should prioritize it at some point and do it for myself. You're right about that.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. If you're so busy helping out clients, that's a good sign indeed. That's right, indeed. It's like, hey, I'm so busy helping other folks get their books out. It's like, hey, I'll get mine out eventually, but hey, let's get this paper and help folks advance into their next level of greatness. That's right, indeed, so they can get that wonderful, wonderful book action manifested.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I am writing books back to back where I'll be sometimes they overlap a little bit too, and I do just feel like in my free time, I wanna do things other than write because I'm doing so much writing already. So, yeah, it's tricky.
Heck yeah, that's right, indeed. Extra tricky indeed. It's like, yep, Amelia's gonna help you to metaphorically breakdance y'all with your wonderful words with the pithy wordsmithery. That's right. That's gonna be the new writing dance, the pithy wordsmithery. Oh man. So since your online course is actually half a book that became a course that will one day remanifest into a book, if that online course were a food, what would it be and why?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. Let's see. Maybe it would be a buffet because there's so much to it and it really takes you like from start to finish through everything and it gives you lots of options for things that you can do and you can kind of take it or leave it, right? Like we talk about like how to interview people or how to ask for book endorsement quotes and what you can think about for publishing options. Like if you want to go with a traditional publisher, self-publisher, hybrid, like different options for marketing. And so it brings up all kinds of different things that you could consider for the book. And so it's probably like a buffet, lots of options.
Well, there you have it, folks. The journey to authorship. It's a whole buffet, baby. That's right, indeed. All you can eat. That's right, indeed. And the good news is, it's one of those all you can eats where you can eat for days and weeks on end. So I believe it's a 8 week program. So it's an 8 week all you can eat buffet. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
More like 8 months. So even longer. Yeah, because you're doing the outline and the writing. And so committing to it for about 8 months. And then once it goes into production, you have that book done in a year.
Sweet. That's right. So that's even better. So more time to not count calories, metaphorically speaking. That's right, indeed. 8 months, then you'll have your book, baby, and then you'll get to join the book boomers of 2020 and beyond and march into the world. That's right, indeed. Even with stilettos, if you so desire, or heels. And you too will maybe one day pose in a Starbucks. That's right, indeed. Who knows? It may even turn into a tree pose. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. All the poses. Just don't do the crow pose. You don't want folks to eat the crow here. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Well, before the call starts to happen, we are coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And you don't even have to go that far back for it. So if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in the current year of 2023, what advice would you give to yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. I would tell myself to chill. Sometimes I think that I get a little intense about work and about other things. And it's hard to sometimes step back and see the big picture and just know that everything is going to be okay. And so I think that's what I would tell myself.
You heard that right, folks. That's right. You got to be an ice cube, y'all. You got to be chill. You got to be cool as a cucumber. But as you know, here we like to say cooler than two cucumbers. That's right, indeed. We do next level stuff here, y'all. That's right, indeed. Two whole cucumbers. That's right, indeed. That's the coolest multiplier. Your chillest multiplier. The more cucumbers, the more chill y'all. Be chill. You'll get things done. That's right, indeed. You get to chill out. You'll get to meditate. Meditate, don't vegetate, y'all. That's right, indeed. Even though we did talk about vegetables just a few seconds ago. But it's a-okay. It's a-okay. So you heard that right, folks. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So my goodness, so for those who need to keep in contact with you in your journey, especially if you decide to one day say, forget it, I'm gonna do my client's book and then release my own, and then we're gonna do double the proof. what's the best way for folks to do so?
The best way for people to get a hold of me or get in contact, the website is pithywordsmithery.com. We're also on social, pithy_wordsmithery on Instagram. And then on LinkedIn, you can just look me up. So Amelia Forczak.
Woohoo! That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Wordsmithery AF. That's right indeed. It ain't what you're thinking, but it's what you're thinking now. AF now stands for Amelia Forczak, baby.
I do put my initials on everything, and I usually if I edit a document, I'll put like AF at the end of it, which is kind of funny.
Heck yeah. That's right indeed. Can't believe it took me that long to finally pull that joke out of the freaking hat. That's right. It was right there this whole time. It's like, yep, AF has a new meaning indeed. That's right. And they heard that right, folks. I'm going to put a link to a wonderful site in the show notes. Check out, of course, if you so desire, indeed, and release that book, baby, into the world, indeed. She's a mom, so she knows all about the baby magic, indeed. So my goodness. Any parting words before we close up shop?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. I really enjoy talking with authors and helping them with their books. Keep an eye out because we're launching a cool new thing later this year called Author Club. And if you're interested in writing a book and you want to connect with other aspiring authors and learn tips and tricks for writing and marketing and publishing, it'll be the perfect spot for that.
Thanks a bunch for investing your time by listening to this wonderful podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you really did, do me a solid and leave a review or share this episode with at least 3 people that you think would get some value out of today's content. Advance others to advance yourself.